Chairman, thank you, and thanks to our witnesses for being here. I've worked to try to make certain that we don't duplicate in geographic areas the dollars that are coming from a variety of now federal programs. In TIA, Rural Utility Services at USDA, FCC. What's the circumstance that is out there? Mr. Law, perhaps, and Professor Lyons, is there enough coordination, or do we see continued evidence that we might be duplicating programs?
I think you can never have too much coordination, Senator. I think that it is incumbent on both the governing entities that are distributing those funds, as well as outreach to potentially local providers or others in those areas to determine what is and isn't available. So I would say there continues to be, I'll say, issues that arise from different funding programs, and I would hope there would be more coordination in the future, and certainly not less.
Professor, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right that there's a wide range of these particular programs that we've adopted piecemeal since 2010, all of which are getting at the right answer, building up. There's a lot of right-hand, left-hand issues. And so at least anecdotally, we've seen an awful lot of situations where two different providers are being subsidized to build in unserved areas simultaneously because one's being funded by one program, one's being funded by another. More coordination is necessary to limit the instances of that happening. And the other concern I have is not just competition or between two subsidized entities, but also between one subsidized entity and one unsubsidized entity in the same space.
We've worried and tried to impress upon the agencies here and in the appropriations process that you could have an entity that's already received money just recently from one federal program and the other federal program be duplicating it, not knowing the dollars have come. I mean, it's not just geographic, it could be also just layering programs. And the reason this matters, I mean, is because we have so many places that need service to begin with, that if we're duplicating one place, we are damaging somebody else. Let me ask, I think this is a professor question. I've joined—
Try to give a professor answer.
I've joined with Senator Klobuchar and Thune and Hickenlooper in legislation trying to encourage the FCC to make decisions about the USF contribution factor. What are the consequences for telecommunications providers and end users if the USF contribution factor is not stabilized? And there's a kind of a related question. So if we're putting all these dollars out there, does the USF support system, does it ever go away? And Mr. Law may have answered that in his response to my colleague about the need for continued support for maintenance and ongoing programming.
Yeah, so I'll say I don't think there's any question that the existing contribution mechanism is unsustainable. I remember speaking about this 5 or 6 years ago when the rate hit like 18%, and I was pointing out that was the level that of the suckers tax that hotels put on out-of-town visitors who in order to pad the local revenues. And now it's almost double that, right? So I don't think there is a question that the existing run rate is not working. The question is, how do you fix it? And our discussion around the table today is largely focused on the denominator, right? What's the base of revenue that we're going to use to try to fund going forward? But one piece of the solution also has to be the numerator problem, right? How do you control the actual spending and make sure that the spending that the surcharge is funding is actually going toward programs that are going to close the digital divide?
Mr. Law, I talk to my providers all the time, but you're on my list of most talked to providers in this setting. Senator Thune has you as a regular feature of our hearings, and it's good to see you one more time. I got just 35 seconds. I'll direct this to you, Mr. Law. Updates needed to certain high-cost USF programs. I've heard complaints about how difficult it is to deliver in our most rural, challenged places. What would your suggestion be with the need to update both the BLS and the ACAM programs to meet that particular challenge?
Thank you, Senator. I think the FCC has a good record in front of from activities over the last year to update both the ACAM and the CAF BLS programs with a couple of things. One is adjust the ACAM program for, I'll say, today's speed requirements. When ACAM was deployed in 2018, it was based on a lower speed requirement. I think it's time to bring that up to speed, as well as give providers that subscribe or participate in the ACAM program the opportunity for extended funding over a longer period of time with an increased speed commitment over a broader area. And I think the FCC has an ample record to act on that, and I hope they do soon. As it relates to the CAF BLS program, I think a couple of things. One is there continues to be an annual budget control mechanism that comes into play. I think it is very evident that the budget that was set for that very vital program is just clearly too low. And instead of trying to address it on an annual basis, I would encourage the FCC to retarget that budget to the current level. Continue to have a budget control mechanism in place. I'm not suggesting unlimited. Continue to have a budget control mechanism in place, but reset it to target it to today's budget. Those would be the two immediate things I would suggest.
Thank you for your suggestions.